Hey, what's up out there? I wanted to share some of my favorite books. I just finished reading a book on about coaching, and been devouring books lately since I've been at home, and so I started thinking about what my favorite books are, and I saw someone else had made a list of their favorites and done them in different categories, and it inspired me to to look back on some of the books that really impacted me, and so I started kind of making a list, and then I, wanted to, after I got done, I wanted to share it with everyone. And it's been fun for me because I've kind of gone back through some of these books and reminded me of some of the ideas and things that I learned and have been able to apply to my own life, and wanted to, give people options out there that are looking for a book to read. And, everyone's, I like to read things that if I'm trying to be more disciplined, I like to read a book on discipline. If I'm wanting to read a book on appreciating life, I, want to read one of these three books. But maybe I'm wanting to read a book about football coaching specifically, or being a better parent, or, whatever it may be, starting a new habit, things like that. So I'm always looking for different types of books in certain times. And I wanted to just go ahead and share my favorites. So, these are three books, help me appreciate life. I think the first one, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Read it a couple summers ago. Phenomenal book about attitude, and how we always have the freedom to choose to have a positive outlook, or to choose to have faith. It's always our choice, no matter what's going on in our life. We can always choose to have a positive outlook, or to have a joyful outlook on things. And obviously, if you don't know a lot about it, but Viktor Frankl went through the Holocaust, was at Auschwitz, and it's basically his journal about how he stayed positive and kept moving forward and survived. And it's just a really interesting book about having a good attitude. The middle one there, The Alchemist. I think this is just a fun read. It's a story, a fable basically, and about someone that accomplishes something and goes on a journey. And it's just a great read. Really make you, it'll inspire you. It'll make you appreciate life. It'll make you, kind of see life in a different way. So if you're looking to do some soul searching, do it in a fun way, The Alchemist is a great read. On Fire by John O'Leary. If you don't know who John O'Leary is, he's got a podcast and some books and things like this. But he was, as a little boy, he was in an explosion in his garage with a gas can. Basically should have died. And it's his story about, not only the story about his, what happened to him and how it changed his life forever and how he looks at life, but it's about all the people that helped him, and really his journey, and how to appreciate life and live his life on fire. So I mean, it's a great read. It's a cool story, and obviously, a positive story. Some books about inspiration. The first one, The Sender, outstanding book. It's by Dr. Kevin Elko, who I'm a huge fan of. He's I think I don't know what he's called, maybe a sports psychologist, but worked closely with Nick Saban at Alabama. He's got degrees from West Virginia. He's a West Virginian. So that's, obviously I'm biased and like him that way. But this is a book. It's about a fictitious high school coach that is diagnosed with cancer. But it's a true story about the letters that Dr. Elko wrote to Chuck Pagano, who was the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts when he was diagnosed with cancer. And these are the letters that he sent Chuck Pagano. But it's in this book, the book's about a fictitious high school character, but it's based on the letters that Dr. Elko sent to Chuck Pagano. And it's just an incredible read. I've probably highlighted the entire book. I've copied and sent text messages with quotes from it to a lot of players, friends. Used them myself, obviously, but it's a must read, and it's a fun read, and really inspiring. The second one, Relentless Optimism. Just read it. It was the first book I read during the pandemic, and I was just looking for something, to stay optimistic, and it was free. So if you're looking for a free book, or you don't feel like spending any money, this book is free. And if you like baseball, and you want to have a positive outlook, this is a great read. It's another fictitious or a fable about a struggling minor league baseball player. That has basically a mentor, his coach, teaches him how to have a positive attitude and how it helps him achieve his goals. So it's a very good read, easy read, and it's a fun read. Okay, some books about mental toughness. This is something that I really love to read about, love to study. How to be more disciplined and mentally tough and overcome challenges and push through. To stay on track. And the first one on the left is Discipline Equals Freedom: The Field Manual by Jocko Willink. He also has another book. Plenty of other books out there, but the Field Manual is my personal favorite. He's got Extreme Ownership and other books, but this one really dives into his mindset. And I want to say it's only about 120 pages. I think I read it in like 3 days. Couldn't put it down, and really makes you think about what's important, how to push through adversity and stay on track. And it's an absolute must read by Jocko. And Jocko, if you don't know who he is, he's a former Navy SEAL. I guess he's still a Navy SEAL but he was in the Battle of Ramadi, one of the more decorated Navy SEALs. And has podcasts, books. Is a leader in a lot of ways, and so this book is really dives into his mindset. Elite is by another Navy SEAL, Nick Hayes, and this one, I think it was really cool because Jocko is a man's man, big, strong, physical, military guy, exactly what you picture a Navy SEAL to look like. Nick Hayes is kind of the opposite of that. I think, according to himself, he's short. There's nothing that's really elite about him, according to himself. But this is how he became elite and how he has an elite mindset. And he graduated from Harvard. He's a Navy SEAL. He wrote this book, and he's got a lot of other great things out there. But this is a great book about high performance and habits and how to establish better habits in your life. The third one there, 10-minute toughness. It's the mental exercise program for winning before the game begins by Jason Selk. Jason Selk he's worked with a lot of teams, but I think he's most famous for working with the St. Louis Cardinals, was their mental toughness coach. The stuff he talks about in that book, the 10-minute toughness exercise, I use every day. Every day I use the exercise he uses. I use it with my team, and we use a variation of it that fits the way that we do it. A lot of this is for professional athletes, but they also have a 5-minute toughness thing you can do for if you're not a professional athlete. So we use a variation of it, and it's been great. It's great for me. It's great for our team, and so it's a really good book that you can apply to your life very quickly. Personal growth. All right, on the left, The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I think he still is the CEO of Success Magazine, but this book really got me excited about habits, for the first time, and got me. It really was the first book that kind of lit a fire in me to write my own book. And there's a lot of things that you can use from that book to apply immediately to create better habits. It really really fueled a lot of what I do, with our team, what I do with myself to create better habits, and a lot of what I, did to write my book. So it really motivated me. It's a great book. A lot of stuff you can apply right away, and how, doing little habits, winning little habits over and over again consistently will turn into, major success. Very similar, to what I wrote my book about. The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. This is if you don't know where to start here. This is a book about, why, how habits are created, why it's important to have good habits, and how we, half of what we do is based on habits. So this is a great book about, how our mind works and how to create better habits and how they work. And then, selfless plug here, or shameless plug. With my book, Small Wins Equal Big Gains. I read a lot of books, and over the years, and applied a lot of different things from each book into how I, try to create better habits for myself, and how I try and what I've learned through leading others, leading myself, and the failures and successes that I've learned from, and put them into a book. And so, if you're looking for something that's going to take you from A to Z, that you want to start a new habit, and you want to do something that's going to be comprehensive, that'll get you to the finish line, where you create something that's routine, that'll lead you to something, a successful outcome. It's a great book for that. And it is a, straight up goal setting book, but it's got stories from my playing career at WVU and different things that I've done as a coach. But I think it's a good book for people that are, really looking to set and achieve goals and are, wanting to stay on track with those things. Uh, my favorite books on training, this doesn't have to be for athletes, but these are the ones that I recommend to our athletes all the time when they're looking for a book about performance mindset, champions mindset, how to focus, things like that, get in the zone. But you don't, it doesn't have to be for, athletes. It could be for, obviously I read it. It was a great book for me as a coach. It helped me with my, how I train, physically. It also helps with, any kind of performance. If you're a speaker, anytime you have to do anything that's performance based, and I think everyone does for their job, these are great reads for that. The Champion's Mind by Jim Afremow. It's exactly what it says, how great athletes think, train, and thrive. And it's got stories, about some of the greatest athletes in the world and how their mind worked and how they, use their mind to create, championship performance. A lot of the stuff I read in there, I still use to this day. I always recommend it to quarterbacks and anyone on our team. Another book, Relentless, by Tim Grover, who was he trained Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Dwayne Wade, probably the most famous, trainer, especially for the NBA. It's a book about, how to go from, from being good to being, elite or unstoppable. And it really dives into the mindset of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, and more of a really, you want to push yourself or give yourself a kick in the ass to do more. This is a great read. I mean, he really pushes you and to think about taking your life and your habits to another level. This is the one you want to read. Books on culture. Culture is something I'm extremely passionate about. I wrote my dissertation on building organizational culture. It's what I really focus on in my job as a head coach at West Virginia State. And these are my favorites. What you do is who you are. I got that on audiobook this winter and just loved it. Absolutely loved it. Kind of went back through how I lead our culture at West Virginia State and kind of helped me redesign and improve what we're already doing. I've listened to it twice already. I constantly am pulling it back out and listening to it again. But it's just a great way to look at, how you build your culture. And it's got great stories from, it's got, some stories about the slave revolution in Haiti. It's got just some of these, the best culture drivers in the history of the world. It's got some great stories in there, and I think that you'll really, really like that. But Genghis Khan, that was the other one. Samurai, the virtues of the samurai and how that shaped the culture of the samurai, and Genghis Khan, how he led, organization or his culture. So it's got some really interesting stuff in there that I just fell in love with. The Culture Code. The Culture Code is a must read. It talks about same kind of thing with the previous book, but it's got some really good stories about, the Christmas truce in World War I, some of the things that why culture is important, how to shape and mold culture. And it's got some things that you can apply today to help, be a better leader and be a better driver of culture. So this one is a must read. It's a fun read. I devoured it quickly. I think I read it a couple summers ago. Legacy. This is a book about the All Blacks, the New Zealand rugby team, and their unique culture. And it's just a really, deep dive into their culture and how it made them successful and how it was unique. And they have a saying called "sweep the sheds." It's about the leaders. They're the ones that clean the locker room and what it says about their culture. A lot of things that I've taken and applied to our team, not in the same way because that's not how culture works, but just how to be unique with your culture. Books on leadership. I got to start with the John Gordon books. John Gordon is my favorite, probably my favorite author, and he's got two really important books for leadership. If this is the way that you want to lead, but The Power of Positive Leadership I read first. That's a book about how to be a positive leader. I couldn't put it down. I read it in a couple days. Phenomenal read. Apply a lot of it to what I do with our team. And there's a lot of stories in there. John Gordon worked closely with Dabo Swinney for years. So there's a lot of stories about Clemson and how Dabo Swinney was a positive leader and how some of the stories that they used together. So that's got a really good insight to it. And then The Power of a Positive Team. is kind of the building off of that, and how to not just be a positive leader yourself, but to build a positive team. And that I use. I bought one for every coach on our staff. Made them read it. We talked about it. We use a lot of the stuff in there for how to lead our team together. But it also, for me, it was a way to show them what I really believe in, as far as toughness, and how being positive is how what I believe is being tough. Staying positive, continuing to move forward. Keep chopping, challenge accepted, how to embrace things, and be a positive team together. So it was a great read for us. I go through it constantly, and it's a must read if you're into positive leadership. Or just being, having a toughness mindset, in your organization. The third one there, the captain's class, that was recommended to me by one of my players, Matt Kinnick, who works at the University of Georgia now in their academic success department. He was probably he's the only one that I know of, but I believe he was I think he was a 4-time captain at West Virginia State. I know he's a 3-time captain. Matt will have to, correct me on that. But he recommended this book to me, and he was a phenomenal leader, but he wasn't your typical leader. He's not, you wouldn't think, oh, that's a great leader, but he was, probably the best leader I've been around, because he just did it in a different way. And this book really explains. It takes the best dynasties of all time and evaluates the captains of those teams and what their characteristics were. And I think it was so fun to read, because it's not what you think. It was totally different than what you would think. And it's based on empirical data. It's not just football, baseball, basketball. It's, handball, soccer. I mean, the greatest dynasties of all time, and what the captains of those dynasties had in common. And so that to me made it a must read, and really a different way to think about, leadership. Okay, books about being a manager. Manager is a word I kind of shy away from, because I don't think you manage people. You lead people. You manage time and you manage money, but you lead people. But anyways, this is just a better way for me to just describe how to be a good manager and slash leader. The one on the left there, Death by Meeting. Patrick Lencioni has some great books out there. They're all fables, and I really like reading some of these fables. And it's a leadership fable about a organization, or a staff, a group, a team, or whatever of in a business, and about how they hate their meetings. That it's about their leader, and how the meetings are boring, and how they change their meetings and get more efficient with their meetings. And I just thought it was a great book, and I use a lot of the concepts in making my meetings better. I mean, we meet a lot as a staff, with our football staff, and I wanted a way to make sure that the meetings were fun, valuable, efficient. I don't want to meet just to meet, but I wanted to really find a way to do it where it was efficient and we could have success with it. So that was a great read for me. He's got some other great books out there. I mean, a lot of them. And this was probably my favorite. The Coaching Habit. I just finished this one a couple days ago. How to say less, ask more, and change the way you lead forever. This was a really cool book in a lot of ways. Number one, it's a great way to teach you how to kind of, instead of giving advice, and I get a lot of young men that come to me for advice. But I think a lot of times they're not really looking for my advice, or they're not going to hear what I'm telling them. So it's a way to basically ask questions to kind of help them get to the root of what they're looking for. And I thought that was really cool. And also in the book, it's got a lot of links that explain how to use these questions. It teaches you, not just in the book, but it gives you interviews, podcasts, videos of how to use the questions in there. And I thought it was a really interesting way to write a book. And I'm using those things, on a daily basis, different ways to coach players on my team, and basically just how to be more efficient. And instead of me giving advice, just to help them get to the bottom of what they're looking for in a quicker way. The third book, Good to Great, was the first book I really read that that got me started on reading books consistently. I couldn't put it down. It's a book about empirical data that companies that sustain success for 10 years or more, and what they had in common. So that was kind of fascinating to me. It's different than you might, I guess the outcomes are different than you might think. And I just thought it was an eye-opening read, and really got me started down a path of reading books about leadership and personal development and stuff like that. So, it's a must read. I see it on almost every, leader's bookshelf, but there's a reason for that, because it's a great read. All right, books on football coaching. This is you don't have to be a football coach to enjoy these books, but these are football specific books that I loved. One of them is Urban Meyer, Above the Line, is just a phenomenal read. It's a book about living your life on purpose. Urban Meyer, regardless of what you think about his coaching or him as a person, he is a phenomenal leader, and he's a different leader in a lot of ways than I am, and that's maybe why I like the book so much. But I use a lot of the things he talks about in that book with my team, with myself, and he is a phenomenal leader, and I just loved reading this book. I've read a lot of books about coaches, Pete Carroll's book, Lou Holtz's book, but this one to me is on a level of its own. And then You Win the Locker Room First. That's another John Gordon book with Mike Smith, who was a former head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. This is a book about the 7 C's to build a winning team, and doesn't have to be for football, but it's based on a football team, obviously. Just how to win the locker room, or win your team, and as a leader to build a great culture in your locker room, or with your staff. All right, the last one here, I wanted to end with this one. I'm always looking for kids' inspirational books and videos. Just, our kids are constantly on iPads and watching movies, and, just electronics, are constantly in their face. And so I'm always looking for things. We do read a lot at night with our kids, and I do like reading, stories and things like that with my kids. But I wanted something I could read to help them learn. And these are two of my favorites. The first one, The Energy Bus for Kids, another book by John Gordon. There is a book for adults, but I got the one for kids, and I've read it with Nolan. Levi loves it right now, and he's 5. Nolan loved it, and we haven't read it in a while with Nolan, but just a book about, how to stay positive and overcome challenges. I mean, that's really it. And there's some stuff in there about bullying. There's stuff in there about just, thinking happy thoughts, and focusing on, the good things that happen in your day. And I think it's just a great read for kids. And it's a fun read, and there's a lot I could take out of it. So we enjoy reading that one with our kids. The other one is another Jocko Willink book. He also has some kids books. I haven't read the second one, but I read this one with Nolan twice, Way of the Warrior Kid. It's about a wimpy little boy who kind of gets made fun of, can't do pull-ups or push-ups, and can't swim, things like that. And over the summer, his uncle comes to live with him, who's in the military, someone that he looks up to. And basically, it's a story of his uncle training him to, go from a wimpy kid to a warrior kid. And it was a fun read. Nolan loved it. I don't think, Levi is only 5. I don't know if he's old enough for this book. There's not a lot of pictures in there. But it was a good read. I read it with Nolan last year when he was 6 and when he was 7. So he definitely, stayed with it and was asking questions about it. So if you're interested in some kids inspirational books, that's what I recommend. I'm going to leave a list of these books in the details or the comments or whatever, and you can check those out. If you're looking for a book, hope you read one of these. Feel free to recommend any to me. I just finished one, so I've always got a long list of books to read, but I usually pick the one that's I'm most excited about, in the present moment. So anyways, hope you enjoyed this. I hope these are books that, you can read, or that you have read, or that inspire you. And hope you're staying safe out there.